This is 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson. The distance from where we should be in the world in going forward on our commitments with climate change.
The effects of climate change that cannot be accounted for, it's called loss and damage. And we're seeing loss and damage happening so much more in this decade and the previous decade.
The principal term there was this question of the correspondent banking issues.
That is why we're trying to build capacity with this country here, Trinidad and Tobago, and other countries in the region. Man
is not showing any signs of stopping or even slowing down. More than half of the forest in Trinidad is already gone.
All the plants and all the animals and all of the nice clean water and fresh air and everything had to be on this planet for humanity to have a chance.
We have small change when it comes to countries that can take decisions, and when they speak, the world listens.
The General Assembly is a very democratic forum. And Trinidad and Tobago has the same vote as Canada, in spite of the obvious difference in size.
This is Face of Sports, WESN Content Capital. How you felt about the kiss on the lip?
That's the business. I'm not to do with that.
I find that was distasteful.
The national senior team, whether you like it or not, that is the model for all other teams to follow.
I'm assuming that the regional requirement may be a much stricter requirement.
This is not about Pro League and Super League. This is a league run by the Normalization Committee that I'm responsible for.
Nobody expected FIFA to fund this arrangement.
If we don't get a professional attitude towards this, we are doomed for failure.
You break a balance, trip the leg, control the body.
They ain't gonna stand put forever.
Why you want the Chiefs to lose so? Why you want the Chiefs to lose so?
They already have two. Lamar don't
Why?
have.
You're jealous because you know the Chiefs getting closer to the Patriots. Let's go to the last part.
No,
of the
not no.
Let's go to the last part.
We are tackling the hard-hitting topics, some controversial topics, some topics we sweep under the rug. You don't always have to forgive in a relationship for it to move forward.
If it is you are in a situation where you forgive the person, but to the detriment of yourself, what are you really doing?
It is very uncommon for somebody in the younger age group to have dementia.
Atheists don't not believe.
Is that I can't disprove God, but you also can't prove God, so we kind of at a stalemate.
We'll focus on the woman who's being the victim,
right,
or the man who's being the victim. We exclude the children.
Folks are trying to study the underlying brain mechanism to figure out how does this particular disorder happen in the brain? How is the brain processing this?
Don't worry about AI, worry about humans working with AI.
Are you willing to learn new skills to stay relevant for the future job market? That's the challenge that people are going to struggle with.
WESN.
Good morning and welcome to In Prime on WESN. I'm Naomi McNish. So this morning we are jumping into a conversation about the recent developments that occurred at the United Nations General Assembly. We've seen Trinidad and Tobago's foreign policy has come under scrutiny following Prime Minister Kamala Persad-Bissess's address at the UN and her government's endorsement of U.S. military deployments in the Southern Caribbean. Now, while the government argues that this strengthens security and benefits CARICOM, others warns that it aligns TNT too closely with Washington and undermines CARICOM's unity. So we're going to talk about that and unpack all these issues. So joining me on the program this morning is political leader of the MSG, Mr. David Abdullah. Good morning, Mr. Abdullah.
Morning, Naomi. How are you keeping this morning?
I'm good. I'm good, thank you.
All right. And
And your colleague is missing this morning, I see.
Yes, she's
Jada.
not here this morning, but hopefully maybe she'll join us a bit later on.
All right, that's
we'll
fine.
see.
Yeah.
All right, so in terms of the Prime Minister's speech at the UN General Assembly, you would have described it to be too aligned with Washington and also shameful, right? In your view, what was the most troubling element about her speech?
Yes, well, there were several aspects of her address that, in my view, the MSJ's view, aligned ourselves with Washington. I said really in Washington's pocket, the pocket of the United States. One of those, obviously, as you mentioned, the question of the U.S. military deployment in the Southern Caribbean, where she reiterated the support for that, not what she called narco trafficking exercise, and that went on further to say something very troubling, which is that the notion that the Caribbean is a zone of peace is a false ideal. Now, one could say that an ideal is very important, but to call it a false ideal was very, very disturbing, because what we have had as a history of the Caribbean going back to the days of European conquest, colonial conquest of the region, was that the Caribbean was a theater of war, where you had the British and the French and the Spanish and the Dutch at sometimes fighting huge battles, naval battles and battles on land for control of what they considered to be extremely valuable, and they were at the time, extremely valuable territories for the exploitation of enslaved people and the production of sugar. And so we were, for a long period of time, for more than 2 centuries, a theater of war. And so that was our history. And subsequent to that, there have been incidents of U.S. intervention, military intervention in the region, in Haiti on many occasions, in Cuba, Dominican Republic, and so on. So that we have the Caribbean region going back many years, and CARICOM leaders articulated that, decades ago at the start of our process of regional integration as CARICOM, that we should be a zone of peace. In other words, we really don't want to have colonial and imperial battles being fought out in our region, nor do we want forces from outside to be engaging with national, armies or forces or governments, and therefore, returning us to being a theater of war. In 1962, you'd remember, well, you wouldn't remember, but history says that, we almost had war in the region with the United States threatening Cuba and so on, and the Soviet Union was involved when in the so-called Cuba Missile Crisis. So that almost turned very, very bad indeed. So that while we are close to the United States geographically and historically, we have important, political and economic relations with the U.S. We certainly do not want U.S. national agenda or interests to supersede the idea that we must remain a zone of peace. And that is a declaration that has been signed on to not only by CARICOM, but by the countries of CELAC, the Caribbean Community of Latin America and the Caribbean. And that notion of the Caribbean being a zone of peace was important, an important principle that enabled the Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, who was chair of CELAC at the time, to bring together his CARICOM counterpart, President Irfan Ali of Guyana, and supported by other CARICOM leaders, Prime Minister Rowley at the time, Prime Minister Motley, and others, to meet with the President of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro, to try and tone down the rhetoric and other things that were taking place around the Guyana-Venezuela border dispute. So it's important for us to hold these principles and ideals. One could say that the UN Charter, because it is violated so many times over in terms of human rights and the lack of respect for sovereignty and so on, that too is a false ideal. But the minute you begin to go down that road, we could say, where does it end? Certainly in terms of international relations, countries set out policies and principles and ideals, which they then utilize to hold others to account and be held to account themselves. And that is very important in international relations. So to describe the Caribbean zone of peace as a false ideal is wrong. And to conflate the issue of warfare between countries, of the possible invasion of a country, of military attack on another country by a third state, to conflate that with the issue of the fact that we have violence in our own societies and countries, and that we have people being killed, to me is not the same thing. The two are not the same. And so we in Trinidad and Tobago and every CARICOM country and Latin American country and the United States wants to make sure that our citizens are safe, that we live in peaceful societies. That is an important ideal, and successive governments have failed to deliver that. Do we therefore say that the vision of having Trinidad and Tobago being a peaceful and safe society is a false ideal? Of course not. It's something that we have to try to work on and ensure. And I should say that the majority of guns that come into Trinidad and Tobago are trafficked out of the United States. And the United States itself is not a peaceful and safe society as one may make it out to be. People get killed. There were somebody drove a truck into a church, a Mormon church, Latter-day Saints and so on, and set it on fire and shot and killed people. There were several other mass shootings in the last week in the United States. So, we have to do what we have to do in terms of collaborating with the US, as we have repeatedly said, and other countries to deal with narco trafficking, to deal with human trafficking, to deal with the trafficking in arms and ammunition. And that is collaboration, which has to be done by way of law enforcement, not military. And there's a huge issue going on right now in the United States. Yesterday, President Trump addressed, and his Secretary of Defense, he calls the Secretary of War now, addressed the entire military high command of the United States and said, President Trump said, well, maybe our cities should be a training ground for the military. And therefore, the whole notion of militarizing what should be law enforcement is something that is being hotly debated in the United States. Very, very dangerous trend, where the military will now be seen to either replace or whatever a civilian activity of policing, law enforcement. We have only in periods of states of emergency, though the Army here in Trinidad and Tobago, the Trinidad and Tobago Regiment, have the right to do arrests. Outside of that, they don't. Yes, they're joint Army police patrols, but that's simply to beef up the police service manpower, if you wish, or human resources. So, but the Army officers can't do the arrest. That has been done by police officers. So, the whole notion of Mr. Trump of militarizing law enforcement, not only internationally but domestically, is extremely troubling. And therefore, to deploy military assets as distinct from the Coast Guard and engage in normal law enforcement activity to deal with drug trafficking, where they would seize vessels, arrest the persons on board, seize the narcotics and other evidence, use that evidence to try people in courts of law and so on. That is the way that you have to go. Other than that, what we will simply have is military might, and whoever has the more powerful and bigger military and is prepared in a macho way to use it, we reduce ourselves to becoming another theater of war. And that is why the Caribbean must be a zone of peace, and that is why one of the reasons why the Prime Minister's address was disturbing. But there were others. She made a statement about climate change, aspects of which were correct when she talked about nations that developed. We're talking about the global north having been developed on the basis of massive use of fossil fuels through industrialization, and which polluted the world, now telling the rest of us that we can't industrialize or develop our own economies utilizing fossil fuels. She said that was hypocritical, and I agree with that. But on the other hand, she railed against climate activists and said they've gone too far and have done more harm than good. Now, she didn't identify who those climate activists are, but she said, well, Trinidad and Tobago will pursue a balanced approach, which is fine, but the people who have been most antagonistic to the climate agenda is the government in the United States under Mr. Trump. Not once, but twice now, he has removed the US from an agreement which they freely entered into, which was the Paris Climate Accord, which everybody recognizes except Mr. Trump, because he does not recognize climate change as being real. He thinks it is false and so on, when the science tells us otherwise. But by removing the US from the Climate Accord, Paris Climate Accords, he has, and implementing that policy approach nationally with respect to deregulating the use of fossil fuels and deregulating the Environmental Protection Agency in the US, ability to control fossil fuel emissions and various other things, de-emphasizing solar and other policies. What he's doing is actually fueling climate change. And so the question has to be whether Trinidad and Tobago now will honor our commitments to the Paris Accord. The Prime Minister did not say that, even as we continue to pursue hydrocarbon development, as we must, because that is the principal source of foreign exchange, government revenue, and contribution to our national income, and therefore we must continue to exploit our hydrocarbon resources, even as we seek to engage in a just transition to non-fossil fuel energy. A third area was when she said that Trinidad and Tobago would support the US and Panama, and it seemed to indicate by way of resources, I'm not sure where we get the resources from, proposal which is going before the United Nations. I think it went yesterday, but I didn't see the result, for what is being called a gang suppression unit. Now, we really don't know what that is. We know about UN peacekeeping missions authorized by the Security Council or the General Assembly, but we certainly don't know about what is a gang suppression unit. That doesn't sound right. And the issue of guns, of course, in Haiti, those guns came from the United States. And so the U.S. has to take responsibility, because the U.S. constantly seeks to destabilize Haiti, speaking through one corner of the mouth and then through another corner of the mouth saying something else. And the U.S. had made commitments to support the multinational force which had been approved by the UN Security Council, not as a UN peacekeeping mission, not as a UN mission, but which was being led by Kenya, and which had the endorsement of a number of CARICOM countries. And the US was supposed to fund it. Mr. Biden couldn't get the money from a Republican Congress to fund it. And it seems as if the US now is no longer interested in funding that. So they want now to replace that with what they're calling a gang suppression unit or force. That is worrisome, because we are aware that there are mercenaries who have gone into Haiti. Eric Prince and his group have seemingly gotten permission to go into Haiti. And we certainly do not want mercenary forces to be involved in what should be a law enforcement exercise in Haiti, with the, of course, agreement of Haitian society. So those are three areas that I identified, or that I identified in our statement. Naomi.
Yeah. Okay. So what I want to go back to the first part, when you spoke about her remarks about the Caribbean not being a zone of peace, or no longer being a zone of peace. Do you think that kind of places Trinidad and Tobago or puts us in a standalone position? Because if that being her remarks, and then other Caribbean countries saying, well, or calling for the Caribbean to remain a zone of peace, and then not only that, but when she acknowledged, or she said, that she won't engage CARICOM on this matter with the US and Venezuela and the military deployment in the Southern Caribbean. What do you think that says to the unity of CARICOM and the unity of the countries in this region?
Yes, you're absolutely right. And very, very early on, the very first statement that I made several weeks ago now on this Venezuela-US issue, I did indicate that one of the objectives, foreign policy objectives of Mr. Trump in his first term, was to divide CARICOM. And he achieved that in his first term when he held a meeting with some CARICOM leaders at his residence in Florida. And at the time, the Prime Minister of St. Lucia, of course, he no longer is there, Mr. Chasnet attended that. I think Jamaica was present, Haiti was present, and maybe one other CARICOM countries. They then joined, a number of them joined what was called the Lima Group, which was a group that the US and Canada was organizing to use within the OAS as a bloc within the Organization of American States to pass resolutions in the OAS, in accordance with the OAS Charter, to enable military intervention in Venezuela and other kinds of interference in Venezuela. Because you recall that the then Secretary General of the OAS, Luis Almagro, and the US and others recognized Juan Guaido as the president of Venezuela when he was not an elected president of Venezuela. And the Lima Group supported that position, and that caused a huge rift within CARICOM. And again, over Venezuela, Mr. Trump is seeking to divide CARICOM. So at the very same day, I think that Prime Minister Prasad Bisesa addressed the UN, Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines and the Prime Minister of Barbados also addressed the UN, and their statements were very different. They spoke about the Caribbean being a zone of peace. They spoke about the importance of ensuring that tensions in the region are de-escalated, that they had concerns about military presence in the Caribbean, and so on and so on. So very, very different approach and tone by those two prime ministers. And their statements were similar to a subsequent statement, I think, by the Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda, and I believe also the Prime Minister of Dominica. I haven't picked up all of the statements by all of the CARICOM heads of government. So yes, we now seem to have in front of not just internally within CARICOM, at a CARICOM heads of government meeting, and maybe with a declaration by a CARICOM heads of government that is ambiguous, or maybe, indicating that there are differences within CARICOM over the Venezuela issue, over narcotics and so on. What you now have is statements on the international stage, the most prominent international stage of the UN General Assembly, which clearly tell the whole world that there are not just differences, but fundamental differences within CARICOM. This does not bode well, because we have to recognize that for Trinidad and Tobago, the biggest non-energy market for manufactured goods is CARICOM. And so, and there's room for greater expansion within CARICOM. The Prime Minister had a spat with the President of Colombia. You now notice that the President of Colombia has been denied a visa, his visa has been revoked and so on by the United States. But Colombia is also a trading partner with Trinidad and Tobago, as are a number of other Latin American countries. So we want to expand to places like Brazil. Brazil, the northeastern city of Manaus of Brazil is just an hour's flight from Quiaco. So we have to recognize that in making foreign policy statements, even as you want to signal that you endorse or whatever U.S. policies in particular ways, you don't have to do it in a way that then creates divisions for key allies of Trinidad and Tobago in terms of trade and other things. So that is concerning. I suppose what the Prime Minister will now say, having met with the Secretary of State yesterday, Marco Rubio, and some indication, which was, we're not sure of the details. I read the report coming out of the U.S. State Department, which said, I'm just quoting, the Secretary acknowledged the importance of energy security to Trinidad and Tobago's economic prosperity and regional stability. He outlined U.S. support for the government's dragon gas proposal. But of course, it's not this government. We don't know. Well, let me make it clear. The dragon gas arrangement was signed legally binding between the governments of Venezuela and the government of Trinidad and Tobago by the former government. So we don't know what is the government's dragon gas proposal, whether that now is a proposal that is separate and different from the agreement that Trinidad and Tobago and Venezuela have, which agreement lasts for very many years. There was a time limit on it, but it goes for very many years. When the Secretary of State statement goes on to say, and steps to ensure it will not provide significant benefit to the Maduro regime. So we don't know if the Trinidad and Tobago government is going to seek to change any arrangements with the government of Venezuela, or whether it is the same agreement that was signed by the PNM government, which the UNC in opposition at the time demonized and attacked and said was nonsense and so on and so on, which they now will have to change their tune on. So we will have to wait and see exactly. Remember they talked about secret deals and secret meetings between Stuart Young and going to Venezuela, and what was all of this about, and how much taxpayers' money was being spent, and they were demonizing, even after coming into government, they were demonizing it. But now they recognize the importance of the dragon gas arrangement for the economic well-being of Trinidad and Tobago. So we will wait and see what further details arise out of that. Perhaps Mrs. Prasad-Bissessar can claim that her closeness now to U.S. foreign policy has enabled the U.S. to return or renew or give a new OFAC license to
well, that was
Trinidad and Tobago for that exploitation of dragon gas. Sorry.
Sorry, no, I thought the same thing, and that was, my next kind of question to you, in that if you thought, what we're doing now and the Prime Minister's comments and her aligning us so closely with the U.S. is just a way for us to, be in their good books, more or less, so that we can have all these deals come through or be on the U.S.'s approval for projects that we want to see happen.
Yes, I mean, that she may say that, right? And I suppose she can claim that justifiably. On the other hand, I would say that one has to, seek Trinidad and Tobago's economic interest in dealing with the United States, but she will now have to also engage the Venezuelan government, because the gas is Venezuela's. So even if we have an OFAC license, Venezuela could say politely, well, no, we're not going to allow Shell, which is and NGC, which are the two operating companies which will engage in laying the pipelines and putting up the production facilities in the dragon gas field. Venezuela could put a stop to that, if the relationship between Trinidad and Tobago and Venezuela has deteriorated to the point where Venezuela is saying that they don't want to have anything to do with the Prasad-Bissessar government because of its statements and so on. So in international relations, yes, you want to try to ensure that both key players, Trinidad and Tobago is one in the middle, but both key players, both Venezuela and the United States, that you maintain a relationship with both of them in such a way that there could be a win for Trinidad and Tobago. So we will have to see how the government now deals with the government of Venezuela, which government Mrs. Prasad-Bissessar has demonized, and the bad talk has gone both ways. Both Venezuelan leaders and Trinidad and Tobago leaders have spoken in derogatory terms about the other. Mrs. Prasad-Bissessar, when in opposition, called Mr. Maduro a narco trafficker. So some things will have to be done to restore a relationship with Venezuela, and how she's going to do that, I don't know, in regard to her support for U.S. military presence in Southern Caribbean. And we will have to see what Mr. Trump does as well. Is that military presence simply a kind of show of strength that he's a strong man in the region, and therefore it might be withdrawn? Will it be that, well, they blew up 3 boats and that is enough to satisfy his claim that he's fighting the war on drugs, when it is all the evidence, the United Nations report on drugs, which Mrs. Prasad-Bissessar still praised the United Nations, the UN report on drugs, which was published in June of this year, I think it was, and the Drug Enforcement Agency report that came out around the same time, both reported that Venezuela is not a major transshipment country for drugs coming out of South America, that the majority of the drugs, 85% or 87% of the drugs, mainly cocaine coming out of Colombia and so on, transit into the United States via the Pacific, in other words, through Ecuador, because Colombia does not have a Pacific coast, and up that way. And another 10% is trafficked through the Western Caribbean, in other words, from Colombia, either on land through the countries of Central America or along the coast and so on of the Western Caribbean, and not through Venezuela. 5% of that cocaine does get trafficked through Venezuela because Venezuela does have a large border with Colombia, and some of that is intercepted in Venezuela and some of it isn't. And some of that which is not intercepted in Venezuela is then trafficked into Trinidad and Tobago and other parts of the Eastern Caribbean, and then to Europe, but not necessarily only to the United States. So the vast majority of the drug trafficking into the United States does not transit through Venezuela, vast majority. And those are the facts not issued by President Maduro or by David Abdullah or by the left in the Caribbean. It's information coming out of the United Nations official report on drugs and organized crime, and also the Drug Enforcement Agency. And so when President Trump talks about fentanyl, that doesn't come out of this way. Most of the fentanyl comes out through Mexico and perhaps out of China and so on into the United States. A little bit may come, but very little. We're talking about minute amount. So the drug trafficking is not in the Southern Caribbean. That isn't where it is. And therefore, if Mr. Trump wants to deal with drug trafficking, he needs to deploy those military assets somewhere else and not in the Southern Caribbean. And so the question is, what are 3 or 4 destroyers with misguided missile capability and nuclear submarine, amphibious landing vessels, and U.S. fighter jets now stationed in Puerto Rico recently? What are they doing? You need a U.S. fighter jet to take out a fishing boat, a pirogue, with 4 outboard engines that may be engaged in human trafficking or narco trafficking of drugs? No. U.S. fighter jets and destroyers with guided missile capabilities, those are meant to deal with targets, military targets, in other countries. And so, we question that military deployment in terms of the objective of narco trafficking, and say that is really about trying to deal with the government of Venezuela, a possible military invasion and or the taking out of key leaders in Venezuela, which would be contrary to international law. And so how Mrs. Prasad-Bissessar then navigates that in the relationship with Venezuela, because Venezuela could simply say, well, no, we're not at this time going to allow any assets of NGC or Shell enter our waters.
Yeah.
We're going to put that agreement on hold and not allow it for the time being. So that has to be dealt with as well.
Mm-hmm. What do you think the real objective here is then if the placement of these ships aren't in the right position or in the right waters to really say, well, we're trying to combat these transnational crimes and narco-terrorists?
Yeah, if you wanted to combat narco trafficking in this part of the region, then you simply have more U.S. Coast Guard vessels. Mm-hmm. They would support Trinidad and Tobago financially to get all of our Coast Guard vessels up and running, so that our Coast Guard vessels, and or supply some additional Coast Guard vessels to Trinidad and Tobago that could patrol the waters in Trinidad and Tobago waters, and therefore prevent any vessels coming into Trinidad and Tobago or the other Eastern Caribbean countries that may be engaged in narco trafficking. That is the way to go. Not a set of destroyers with guided missile capability and fighter jets and so on. So there are ways of dealing with it by law enforcement, which is what we would encourage, and of course intelligence, because there are and there's cooperation. Let us not forget that there's ongoing cooperation between our country and the United States and the rest of CARICOM countries in the United States. Mm-hmm. We have drug enforcement agents located here in Trinidad and Tobago. The agents as well of the arms, tobacco, and ammunition, tobacco and firearms agency of the United States. They're located here. They all engage in intelligence operations, and they do it jointly with Trinidad and Tobago's police service and so on. So, those are the things that need to be strengthened in terms of countering not just drug trafficking, but also human trafficking.
Right. So the acting Foreign Affairs Minister, Mr. Kennedy Swartzing, he argued that TNT lacks resources to confront these transnational crimes on our own, right? And therefore, the U.S. support provides this necessary blanket of security. And then I guess the argument there is that it's a practical solution, right? Having the military ships and all these weapons, right? What would be your argument to that, saying that, you know, it is a practical solution because we don't have the resources to do it on our own, even if we wanted to?
Which is why I just mentioned that there'll be a long-standing understanding of that fact that we don't have the resources to do it on our own. Hence, the collaboration between Trinidad and Tobago, having DA agents here, having the ATF agents here, having working in collaboration with Trinidad and Tobago security services, and also, you know, joint operations in the sea. You remember some time ago that a Coast Guard vessel stopped a semi-submersible, one of these kind of homemade, if you wish, subs that operate. They can't go deep sea, but so that's why they call semi-submersibles, which are used to traffic narcotics. And the Coast Guard, excuse me, vessel stopped it, boarded it. 2 Coast Guard officers went on board. They took into custody all of the persons who were on board. And before they could organize to move that vessel and bring it into Stobel's Bay, one officer was on the vessel, in the vessel, trying to see if there was any other person on board. And then the vessel was sunk, and our Coast Guard officer died tragically in that situation. Now, that was quite possibly a joint collaboration between Trinidad and Tobago and U.S. intelligence. You'd also remember there was a huge drug bust that took place in, I think, in Spain, and a couple months ago, one of the biggest drug busts that took place. And that vessel left Trinidad and Tobago, it was a big yacht, left Trinidad and Tobago with drugs on board, but it was captured in Spain. And the statement was that this was a collaborative effort between the United States, the Spanish authorities, other European authorities, and Trinidad and Tobago. So there's collaboration all the time, precisely because we cannot do it on our own. So that's why I'm saying that one of the things that can be done would be to have the U.S. provide additional Coast Guard vessels for Trinidad and Tobago to provide resources that could make sure that our Coast Guard vessels are all functioning efficiently and well and are out to sea all the time, protecting our borders. Certainly, the U.S. can't come into the Gulf of Paria, right? Because then they will be in Trinidad and Tobago waters or in Venezuelan waters. So the U.S. can't come into the Gulf of Paria, and there's a lot of smuggling, as we know, that takes place in the Gulf of Paria. The question of arms trafficking, so that deals with narco trafficking. The question of arms trafficking, that has to be stopped in the United States because the arms, all those AR-15s and so on, and the Glocks and other arms that have been used by criminals here in Trinidad and Tobago to kill people, those come out of the U.S. They don't primarily come out of Venezuela. Some may be smuggled in as pirogues come across, but the majority of them come through legal ports of entry into Trinidad and Tobago. The biggest arms busts were at bonded warehouses and at Piarco. And there was one person, former football coach, who was arrested, I think, in Jamaica and is now facing trial in the United States for trafficking guns into Trinidad and Tobago. Those guns were held, I think, at a bonded warehouse or at Piarco. So the U.S. has to do more in collaboration with Trinidad and Tobago to stop the guns coming into Trinidad and Tobago. That is because the guns, we don't manufacture guns, those come out of the United States. And that is where the Prime Minister of Barbados spoke to that at the UN, that she wants the U.S. to take a greater responsibility for stopping the flow of guns into the Caribbean. which because the guns are killed, right? Or the people holding a gun and using a gun that result in deaths. And the issue of Haiti and the gangs, those guns come out of the United States. Guns weren't trafficked up from Venezuela into Haiti, they come out of the US.
Yeah.
So the US has to take big responsibility for not stopping the flow of guns into Caribbean countries, which are causing so much mayhem and loss of life.
Yeah. So I want to speak on climate change really quick, because that was one of the things that you mentioned at the start of the conversation. And the Prime Minister suggested that activists are too antagonistic, and then you countered that, saying that the US itself has been antagonistic by withdrawing from the Paris Accord. So then my question to you is, do you see TNT aligning with the US at the expense of smaller islands' survival, or it does not protect vulnerable countries like ours even?
Yes, and that is why in our statement I asked whether we are still going to adhere and support the Paris Climate Accord. And I think the government of Trinidad and Tobago needs to make a very clear statement on that. As you know, the next COP conference, I can't remember which number it is now, 23 or 24, I can't remember what number they've got, 27 perhaps, is taking place in Brazil in a few months' time or a few weeks' time. And so it would be important for Trinidad and Tobago's position, even before that COP meeting, to make a very clear statement. Which statement should be about our reaffirming our commitments to the Paris Climate Accord, because we did make commitments to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions by a certain percentage by a particular year. And secondly, demanding, together with CARICOM and other countries of the Global South, that the countries of the North fulfill their commitments to fund the transitions that are required by us, because that is very, very important. The countries of the Global North have failed to put into the climate fund the kind of money that is necessary to enable a proper transition. So those are the things that need to be stated very, very firmly. And one would hope that Trinidad and Tobago would be part of a collective CARICOM position, because when we are part of a collective CARICOM position, it now means that we vote not with one voice, but we have 14 votes, and we have a larger impact, because countries of the Caribbean, CARICOM countries and other countries of the Caribbean are significantly affected by climate change. Fortunately, this year, the hurricane season did not see any significant damage in terms of property and economic activity and loss of life to CARICOM countries. But it is always in our realm of reality that climate change is affecting us. There have been significant reports about sea level rise and losing land, coastal land, and the need, therefore, sometimes to spend money to protect our coastline from sea level rise and things like that. So even without hurricanes, there are impacts. I think we all agree that it gets so much hotter these days, and that has an impact on our lives and our health and so on. So there are significant things. The question of supply of water, whether it's 1 minute drought or next minute flooding, and so on, not necessarily with hurricanes, but there's extra heavy rainfall in some parts of the country causing, loss of damage to property and so on, inconvenience to citizens. So we have to pay attention to climate change, and one hopes that prior to the upcoming COP, that there are some very clear statements by Trinidad and Tobago's government on this matter. And I say both in terms of our reaffirming our position and commitments to the Paris Climate Accord, but also together with our CARICOM member states, demanding that the countries of the Global North meet their commitments in terms of financing the climate fund.
Yeah. So I know we do have to wrap up now, but I want to ask really quickly, do you see a viable path for TNT to maintain an independent foreign policy while still protecting our interest of energy, trade, or I'll say we do still have a dependency on these things. So to protect that.
We can, but I really am not confident about it, given how explicit Mrs. Prasad-Bissessar has been in support of troubling and disturbing agendas and policies by Mr. Trump, which agendas really are, to call it a spade, they're colonial agendas, they're imperial agendas. And we ought not to be endorsing colonial and imperial agendas. One can perhaps strengthen your relationship with the U.S. government if you think that the last government's relationship with the U.S. was not on good terms. There are ways of strengthening it without going to the point where you are endorsing the colonial and imperial policies of the United States, and also without endorsing other policies, singing the praises of Mr. Trump and Mr. Rubio are not necessary. You don't have to sing the praises of other countries' leaders to have a good relationship with that country. You engage them on the basis of mutual respect of the sovereignty of the country, as they must respect the sovereignty of Trinidad and Tobago. You engage them on the basis of, yes, you're a bigger country, you're a much larger economy, you're a military power and so on, but we have to engage on an equal footing because we are a nation state and our people have a right to self-determination, just like your people have the right to self-determination. Yeah. But we don't have to get all effusive in the praises of individual leaders. That is worrisome, particularly in a context where those leaders are pursuing policies, as I said, colonial and imperial agendas. Mr. Trump wants to say that he's brokering peace, say, in Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo, but that was about getting access to the mineral resources of the Democratic Republic of Congo. That was part of the agreement. Is that the kind of foreign policy engagement that we wish to be in support of? I think not. When he was trying to broker the Russian-Ukraine war, develop a peace agreement, he said to Ukraine, well, we will support you if you give us your minerals and access to your resources. That's an inappropriate, that's an imperial agenda. That's not about real peace. The thing about Gaza, which is proposal now with some board or council that will be in charge with him as chairman, my God, and they will therefore determine the development of Gaza. That's an imperial and colonial agenda. And the Palestinians are being pushed into a corner by everybody to accept it. We don't know what they will do. But that's an imperial agenda. And then saying, well, if Hamas doesn't agree to it, then he's allowing Israel to continue genocide. I mean, that's unacceptable. So, and what was disturbing, as I said now, is that Mrs. Prasad-Bissessar didn't offer at the UN a single word of support for the Palestinian people. She says that she's concerned about women and children here in Trinidad and Tobago and all of it. Well, what about women and children who are the primary victims of death in Gaza? They comprise 70% of the people who are being killed by the Israeli military are women and children. There was no mention of ending the blockade against Cuba, which is a statement that is routinely made by prime ministers at the UN, CARICOM prime ministers at the United Nations, to demonstrate that we're concerned that the blockade against Cuba and the US maintaining Cuba on this so-called list of countries that engage in state sponsorship of terrorism, which is a false accusation against Cuba, absolutely lie, which is causing a human crisis in our sister Caribbean country. She could have said those things to demonstrate a certain independence of Trinidad and Tobago's foreign policy. Yeah. So yes, we can have an independent foreign policy, but you don't have to go overboard in singing the praises of leaders of other countries in order to maintain our interests.
Yeah, because I think it is important and very crucial for us to also maintain a relationship with our regional partners in anything that we do.
Absolutely, absolutely, agree with you 150%.
And based on how everything looks, it doesn't
and also
seem...
our Trinidad and Tobago nationals and others who are in the diaspora in the United States, who are facing ICE agents who are masked and so on, and a federal judge just gave a judgment a few days ago saying that it is illegal for ICE agents to be masked, it's an atrocity and so on, a kind of secret police. We can't be singing praises of a president who is also harassing CARICOM and Trinidad and Tobago nationals, sometimes quite wrongly. I mean, I was talking to some colleagues from Puerto Rico. I just came back from Mexico at a conference and so on. And I was speaking to some colleagues from Puerto Rico. Now, Puerto Ricans are American citizens, because Puerto Rico is a colony of the United States. So they're citizens of the U.S. And because they speak Spanish or look a certain way, U.S. citizens who are from Puerto Rico are being picked up and detained. I mean, it's gone that far. You know, it's racist, it's xenophobic, it's horrible in the U.S. right now. So we can't be singing praises of people like that, while we have to recognize that Donald Trump is the elected president of the United States and he's in charge and so on, and therefore we have to deal with him in that way. But it has to be on the basis of some respect for ourselves and respect for our maintaining a non-aligned position.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Well, Mr. Abdullah, thank you so much for joining me on the program this morning. The conversation was very extensive. I think we covered more than I expected to cover this morning.
Thank you very much. Always a pleasure being on your program,
yes.
AM Prime. Got it right. Yes, thanks a million. Take care.
All right, bye-bye. Okay, so that brings us to the end of the first part of the show. As you all know, today is Wild Wednesday, so we have Mr. Meade coming on next with a surprise. All right, so stay with us, don't go too far, we'll be right back.
Remember waking up early just to catch your favorite cartoons? WESN brings back those magical mornings with Retro Saturdays.
Thus, the Powerpuff Girls were born!
Where the young at heart relive the fun. Join us every Saturday from 8 a.m. to 12 noon, only on WESN, the content capital.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website, www.fanzonett.com, for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website, fanzonett.com, to make your purchase today.
Low energy? Heart concerns? Migraines slowing you down? It's time to take control of your health. Join Wellness Unlocked, the series that brings expert advice and real solutions for a healthier you. In our latest episode, learn how Jameson CoQ10 can help support heart health, boost energy, and even reduce migraines. Get the science, the stories, and the steps to power up your health with CoQ10. Don't miss Wellness Unlocked. Watch now on WESN and start your wellness journey today.
I am Dr. Delphina Ovid, your friendly neighborhood dentist. At Community Hospital Dental Clinic, we offer examinations which include x-rays, basic oral cancer screening, and a treatment plan. We also offer cleanings, fillings, extractions, root canal treatment, and complete and partial dentures. Remember, you don't have to brush and floss all your teeth, just the ones you want to keep.
Give us a call at 235-5479.
The Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
where good private health care is affordable.
Welcome back to Wild Wednesday. Yeah, one of the most exciting things that we do on AM Prime. So this morning we, as usual, joined by Mr. Ricardo Mead. Good morning, Mr. Mead. How are you this morning?
Good morning, ladies. I am doing great. Great to be here. Good morning to all our listeners and followers out there. Good morning. It's Wild Wednesday.
It is. And it's going to be wild because we have what I understand to be a very wild animal. Tell us what this is.
So this morning with me is Larry. Larry is a bird, as we can see. So he's Larry Bird. So the older people will get that. Larry Bird is a gray-lined hawk. It is actually one of the most common hawks in Trinidad and Tobago, but most people would look at it and say, but I've never seen that bird. The reason for that is quite simple. He has a rufous brown color when he is a juvenile. So he looks brown, brown bird. But once he hits 2.5 years, he would molt out those brown feathers and he would adopt these new final adult plumage, which is gray, which has lines in it, hence the name gray-lined hawk. Right, Harry? So he is an amazing hunter, and with that, we lose a lot of them. As a bird of prey or a raptor, all he eats is meat. You know, I have to constantly remind people that because they would encounter one, it might be injured or they might have it in their backyard, and they said, well, I tried to feed it. I said, great, what did you put for it? I put some bananas and some bread. It wasn't interested because he only wants meat. He's a hunter, he's a killer. Raptor, like the movie Velociraptor, hunt, kill, eat. That's it.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you have to provide him, you're putting seeds in your hand and you're putting it towards him, and he's looking, he's not looking at the seeds, he's looking at your fingers, wondering which one of them I can peck at. You want to try a finger? He's behaving himself very nicely today. But Larry's been with us for a couple of years. He had suffered a broken wing and a broken leg. Someone took him as a juvenile, and because of poor nutrition and poor diet, his bones were very hollow. He had actually started to develop something that's called metabolic bone disease. Without that level of calcium, the bones will just not be dense enough and hard enough. And as he tried to fly, he fell and broke a leg and a wing, literally. You know, so it's like a two-piece in Kentucky, a leg and a wing, one time. So he went through rehab, and today he stands very nicely, and his wing is nice, and we're training him to hunt as we speak, so he can express himself and get a chance to do what a hawk of his caliber should do, hunt and kill. So his main prey would be like pigeons and smaller birds, but he will take down rodents as well. So you have rats and mice and so on like that there, he would go after that. Wouldn't encounter them too much because he's very much diagonal. Daytime, 6 to 6 is hours. After that, he punches his card and he gone. But if any prey comes along within that time, they're all fair game.
How much would it take to feed him in a day?
He would eat about 5 mice, 5 adult mice per day.
Wow.
And that's with him not doing much exercise. He's not flying much. He's not doing much. So once they start doing that, they require even more food.
Yes.
So that's part of the reason why they perch a lot. Because if they fly around looking for food, they will probably collapse with hunger before they find something or capture something.
Yes.
So they practice standing and looking.
Yeah.
Standing and looking. And they will do that for hours, just shifting their head around looking until they find what they believe is a good prey and a good opportunity to go after it. But with all their skill, all their ability, amazing wings, eyesight like a hawk, right?
Yes.
And incredibly sharp talons. With all of that, he would only, at best, achieve 20% success. So only 1 in 5 times trying to catch something will he actually be successful. And that's with all things being good.
Wow.
So if something is off with him, they usually will do very badly and they could end up dead.
Where do, what is their environment like that they live in?
Well, a lot of secondary forest. You can find them in virgin forest. We have very little left in the country, but they've adapted to secondary forest and even as far as urban areas. So once you have some trees around, so you can see these guys around Port of Spain, around Woodbrook, Diego Martin, wherever people are, they're little birds, the tanagers, pigeons, they will be around looking for an easy meal and of course making their nests in some high tree that would hopefully be out of the reach of most humans. But people are still reaching them, taking them as juveniles, and then they eventually die. Only about, I would say, 15% of them make it to adulthood from the numbers of young. Wow. Yeah, very few make it to turn gray. For the amount that are hatched out, animals have a tough life. People need to understand this. They're about survival of the fittest. There are no programs in place to help the ones that have any problems, issues, handicap. You have a handicap as an animal, you die. As simple as that. What that means is that the best, the biggest, the strongest, the bravest, whatever you want to get, the most capable are the ones who make it. Yeah. That's what you need in the animal kingdom because that's what is required. Humans are quite different. Some of our most brilliant people, thinkers, intellectuals, were not physically capable, but they were able to use that.
Yes.
And they were able to use that in such a way that they were able to sustain themselves at a high position where people respected the fact that, you know, you can't cut trees, you can't kill a bear or a lion, but you can think. Yes. And that is what is important for us as a species.
Yes.
So here we are today, but it seems that collectively we are losing our ability to think beyond our bellies and our pockets. In other words, we're just destroying ourselves and claiming we're doing this for our children. So if your children can't breathe oxygen, what are we going to do? Go to Mars? Yeah, some people have aspirations of that, but the truth is we have our perfect planet here that provides us with every single thing that we need. The only thing that comes into planet Earth from outside is sunlight. Everything is here within our globe, our sphere, our environment, and we're destroying it. And that's why I will always make the effort, and then we'll get some of the volunteers to come and make the efforts, because people do not see the synergy, the connection, the linkages between these little guys and our survival. So it's not about them only. It's understanding that if you have a circle and pull a piece out, all fall down.
So let's understand a little bit, how important is Larry to the ecosystem? What role does he play in the balance of nature and
Well, it's quite simple. Animals are usually significant by what they consume or what they put out. So Larry is an apex predator. He hunts and he kills. So you have an overpopulation.
No, apex predator, like a dinosaur. Dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Dinosaurs are
Or a lion in Africa, tiger in the Asias, sharks in the ocean. They remove the ill, the old, the infirm, sometimes the young, and they ensure that what is left there of viable, sensible, strong creatures to keep that species going. So while a lion would kill wildebeest, the lion ensures that the wildebeest can survive. Because if the old, the infirm, and the sick are allowed to remain amongst the populace, it brings everybody down. Especially with sickness, it just spreads like wildfire throughout. But if the sick one is called by the lions, then the strong ones get a better chance of moving on and staying on and being strong. So it's the same thing with these birds. They control other birds. They control what we consider pests, rats and mice. How many rats and mice should we allow to have around? Well, we can't even really say, but Mother Nature has already figured that out. So he will take down 6 a day. Now, they will never wipe out all the rats and mice, but they will reduce the population to such an extent that, one, they're strong and vibrant and it goes on, but two, and most importantly for us, it reduces the impact of those pests on our lives. Because that little mouse carries with a big, long disease with a big name, leptospirosis. And that is a main killer all around the world. So who's going to stop the mice? Your rat trap, you'll get 1 a week, a month possibly. He's doing 6 a day. And other ones like him. So it's a synergy. They work together. And what happens is when humans come in, we mess it up. But we need to understand that we need to stop messing it up and let the animals be animals. Let the wildlife be wild. So while we present the animals here, the key is these are wild animals and they do something very important, the wild. And we need to respect that. And now we have to go even beyond respect. We need to understand it. So that when we speak to someone, we can tell them, leave it, not because it should be left alone, but because your future, our planet's future, our children's future depends on these animals doing their thing. They can survive without us. Snap a finger like Thanos and remove all humans from Earth. It will be beautiful again, and everything will be vibrant. No animal is going to stop with the humans. No. They will adapt to the slight changes and move ahead, and it will be amazing. In no time, in the middle of Port of Spain, trees growing and animals roaming. As soon as you put humans back, the reverse occurs, right? We start losing things. In the past 100 years, we've lost more than 2,500 species of animals that we know of. Imagine things would have been lost that we have no clue about as well. So it's a very dangerous time that we are living in, because we're looking at economic power and the balance and the shifts of that stuff. But the small things like these here that create a situation where disease can overtake a region, thereby now millions of people could be at risk. All right? Just let's never forget COVID. And never forget how some animals do their part to control things that could come back to us. Never forget the plague. Remember the plague? Well, you weren't there, I was there, but we heard about it and we knew of people dying and suffering and so on. And what caused it? Rats, but more specifically, fleas that came into the household and around humans on rats. And that is partially because at that time, human culture was get rid of anything that you did not like. So could you imagine how many snakes and hawks and owls they would have killed back then? And if they were allowed to live, how they would have controlled the rats, would not have brought in the fleas, and that would have caused the plague. So understanding now and look back, and that's why historical perspective is important. We need to see what we did stupidly, wrong, out of ignorance. Now we're in a position of information and understanding. Spread the information, spread the education, understand that it is important. And besides all of that, these guys are money. When you look at us up in the tree, it's money. Not by catching it, not by selling it, but by someone from another country taking the opportunity to book a flight, to come to the airport, to take a taxi, to go to the hotel, where the hotel people are working, hundreds of them, and then take another taxi and hire a bird guy to go into the forest or the edge of the forest to see this bird. We do not appreciate how important birding is all around the world and how much money people spend for an opportunity to see even one particular species on their list.
So is this bird only found in Trinidad and Tobago?
No. It is really at this time.
What did you eat, Larry?
chicken, chicken. So that is part of what they do. They do something called casting. You cast a pellet, but it was not properly formed pellet. When they eat something like a rat or a mouse, or even a bird, they can't digest the feathers. They can't digest most of the big bones. So it goes into their stomach and they draw out whatever nutrients they need, and the rest in a 12-hour period sort of gets congealed and compressed into a pellet, which they would regurgitate. So what comes up now would be feathers and bones. And sometimes it's in a really nice tight mass with the feathers and so on, or even fur, and even last for thousands of years. So people are now finding these things, carbon dating them, and then taking them apart and figuring out these owls or these hawks from 16-something or whatever, ate rats, ate mice, ate this, ate that, ate lizards. Very important in understanding how and where and what happened to bring us to where we are now as humankind.
So he just had something go at one end and something go at the other end?
Yes, yes, he has that ability, yes.
Oh my. Oh. Making a mess, Larry. And I love his song.
Yeah. Yeah.
It sounds very like something like a bird you would hear early in the morning, really early. I don't know what kind of bird it is, but I'm pretty sure I've heard this sound.
It also has a very high pitch peak sound. So just imagine that sound sort of on repeat and just going up, then down the scale.
Now I'm thinking when I hear that sound, it's probably a gray-lined hawk.
Gray-lined hawk, yeah. And again, you would hear it, and we never get a chance to see it. So hearing the sound is very, very important for identifying these animals. So I had a terrific weekend, very hectic. I got wet every single day, including yesterday. I'm trying to finish it up at a Gucci enclosure, and the rain comes again. I'm like, is there not a day that I do not get wet? So I'm sounding a bit nasal because of that, my head getting wet all the time, but I had to finish my work. And my hectic weekend began on Friday with a couple tourists, a friend of mine and his friend, coming to Trinidad. I spent a lot of money for those 3 days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Monday they were out. And what did they do? Lots of birding, turtle watching. They lost their minds when they were able to encounter the largest turtle in the world on the best beaches in the world, right here in Trinidad. And that night they saw about 15 turtles in Grand Riviere.
Wow.
So imagine never having seen a turtle that big.
Yes.
And then now coming to see not one, not two, 15 in one night. They absolutely lost their minds. And then they got to see the tufted croquet. That's an amazing hummingbird we have here in Trinidad. People all over the world into birds, they're like, we have to go to Trinidad to see that bird. There are other places you can see it, but we have the best place because it's easy. And also they got to see the piping guano, or the pawi. That is endemic to Trinidad. So that means you can search the entire world. If you want that to check off on your list, you're gonna come right here and go up to Matura, you know, go up to Toko. And that is what is amazing, and people out there need to understand that. You're shooting the turkey and calling it, the pawi, and calling it bush turkey and wild meat, right? A protected bird. Not only is it protected, it's an ESS, environmentally sensitive species. That means the government says, do not touch this bird, not even a feather. $100,000 fine, 2 years in prison. And people still do not have a regard for the importance of this bird. So if the pawi dies in Trinidad, it's declared extinct, and they're going to put next to it because of notice Trinis. Yeah, they wouldn't say it like that. But when you read it, this bird was in Trinidad. This bird went extinct in Trinidad. Why? People didn't come from abroad to kill the bird. Trinis. We did that.
Hunted to extinction.
Hunted to extinction. And when you look at the economic opportunities that this bird can present for these very people in these communities who are saying they don't have work and they don't have this and they don't have that, you have biodiversity and you're starting to eat it. Come on. Get with the programs. Get with the times. We also went to Yeret, home of the hummingbirds.
Yeret?
Yeret, Maracas, St. Joseph. Yeret. Do you know what is Trinidad's real name or names? Before Columbus came here, there were people here. And that's what a lot of people don't realize. Columbus told Isabella and Ferdinand, the next land on my next journey that I come to, I shall name it for the Holy Trinity. Most people don't realize that. They miss that part in history. So if he landed in Barbados, Barbados would have been called Trinidad. If he landed in Venezuela, Venezuela would have been called Trinidad, because the name was promised before the journey even began. So we hold on to the myth and the legend that on approaching Columbus Bay in the south of Trinidad, he saw these 3 peaks and he named it for the Trinity, and thus we came Trinidad. Couldn't be further from the truth. Many people have tried that journey and look at me and say, no tree hill, no peak. There is none. There is none. Okay? And if you really know your history, like I said, I studied history, West Indian history, European history, world history. It was promised before. So wherever he landed was going to be Trinidad. It just happened to be us. But before we were Trinidad, we were somebody. And there were as many as 16 different tribes of people living here. We had biodiversity before people even knew what it was. The other Caribbean islands had 1 or 2. But because of our proximity to South America, many people came across. And the names they had for it, one was Yeret. Y-E-R-E-T-T-E, Yeret, home of the hummingbirds. And the other one is Airi, land of the hummingbirds. So a 16-year-old boy is in a little dugout in Venezuela. When he said, Mom, I'm going across to the island. Where are you going? We're going Airi. They ever said Trinidad? Didn't know anything about that before. Okay, so we need to know this and understand. Trinidad, hummingbirds are significant. So we are the home of the hummingbirds, or the land of the hummingbirds. And we have 19 species of hummingbirds here. Ask a Trini to name you 3. There we go again. Yeah. Right? But here's what. The hummingbird everywhere. Caribbean Airlines, hummingbird. Police service, hummingbird. Postal service, hummingbird. Coat of arms, not 1, but 2 hummingbirds. Our money, hummingbird. And it goes on and on. And we see it, and we assume, 1, every hummingbird is green. And it's all the same thing. It's the green one. Which hummingbird is the green one? $20 bill. Hummingbird. And so it goes on. But we don't know what we have. But these people come with their books and their knowledge. And most important to us, their foreign exchange. That they leave here with us and giving people jobs along the way.
I just want to point out, so he's like standing on 1 foot, on 1 claw. Why is that happening? He's been like that for quite some time.
That indicates, anytime an animal does that, a level of comfort. Okay, so he's not on high alert. He's not like this and watching around to attack anybody or anything. He's comfortable. You're not going to bother me. You're not going to, I'm okay. And they take, that's a comfort position.
Nice.
He's quite
Jada,
cool that way.
He's comfortable.
Right? So now we need Jada to get on 1 foot also. Because we know Jada is...
Jada is at the edge of her
I can
seat.
hear her heart beating.
Guys.
Right.
Larry seems fine. Larry
is terrific. Sorry. Larry is like, he did that on cue. He said, like, I know what you're going to do. Come on, Larry. Right, so here we go.
So I just want to reiterate as well, there was something you said previously when there was another bird on the show. I think it was one of the, it was before the owl.
Or the woodpecker.
The woodpecker. And you spoke about the eyes.
Yes.
So when the eyes are in front versus when the eyes are at the side.
Correct.
And I know Larry's eyes are at the side.
You find it on the side?
Is it?
Or he looks at you and you can see both eyes looking at you straight ahead?
Kind of,
Right.
not really.
Yeah, looking forward. When you see the side, when you see the comparison, you can see the very,
Because
very
if he
different.
puts his head down like this, you can kind of see they're at an angle. They're not directly in front.
Well, he has a very sharp face, as many hawks and predators do. It comes to a point. So there will be no position really for it to be out there. So because of the protrusion, it creates the effect that is more to the side, but that's front. So he has very limited vision to the back.
Right.
Okay, whereas the predators have about 270 degrees of vision. So only that's part of the reason why they're not very successful in hunting all the time. They only have that one small spot at the back of a predator's head that is a blind spot that they can get him. And after that, they see them and then the evasive maneuvers happening and stuff like that there. So yeah, he is literally eyes like a hawk, total binocular vision.
Yeah.
And he can see, put it this way, he can read a newspaper about 10 meters away.
Yeah, wow.
I don't know if you guys have seen this, but his head, like it can go for quite some turns.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
he's literally turning Yeah.
Yep. Yes, he can do that, and that is how what they used to hunt. Because, like I said, remember I said instead of flying around or moving around, they would stand and just pan like a camera. Is something there? Nope. Something there? Nope. And he does that.
Yeah.
Huh?
I just like the hook, and I also want to point out like how his feathers are. It almost looks like it's clothes. Like look how it's coming down or cascading down his legs. It almost looks like he's wearing a nice cute coat.
Yep. Yep. That's it. The feathering and so on like that. These animals are incredible. You don't have to worry. He's going nowhere. He's just showing off that I'm touching his leg. He's like, don't touch my talons today. But these here are like knives, but not on this particular bird. They're a bit dull, and we're happy that they're dull. So when he advertently gets on our skin, he doesn't rip the skin, which is good there. We sometimes do have to do a little filing on it to keep it safe. It's a balance. He doesn't have to go out there and hunt, so he doesn't need to be razor sharp. But they are some of the sharpest talons I've ever encountered. Sharp, I mean really sharp. I mean, he doesn't even need to put power in it. They're so sharp that even a casual brush on it can rip your skin. So his one is really dulled down. I'm really happy about that. Right? Like, you smacked me in the face with your wing. Thank you. I got that right in my eye there, Larry. That's not nice. Be nice. Yes, sorry. See, I'm sorry. Right. So yeah, so it makes him a great ambassador. He's quite comfortable, as you see, raising his leg. He's okay, he's a good size, so he doesn't, when the other ones come out, it sometimes intimidates a lot of people. You know, I mean, it doesn't matter what size, Jada's going to be intimidated anyway. But yeah, we're going to poke fun with you with that there all the time. But okay, so Larry is on my glove. This is a falconry glove or bird handling glove. And it's reinforced here. It's a little longer because we have some of the birds that are much bigger and much more powerful. So it's reinforced here, so I can't feel his talons there. He's also a casual stander. He knows he doesn't have to grab onto me. He's good that way. So he has on his legs anklets, right? A pair of anklets. And then he has these long leather straps called jesses. And then it has a swivel and a leash. Now, you've heard of William Shakespeare?
Yes.
The bard? Right. He loved this stuff. He loved falconry so much that when he wrote falconry terms into the English language that you use and people out there use to this day. There are actually 10 of them. 10 falconry terms that he wrote into the English language, and we use them without knowing where they came from. So I'm going to give you a couple this morning. Okay, so first of all, he's on my glove, right? And Jada's a little worried. She's jumping every time he moves. But I can say this to you, Jada. Don't worry. I have him. Look what I'm doing here. What am I doing here?
Wrapped around my finger.
I have him wrapped around my finger. And what do you think that means?
He's not going anywhere.
Right, I have him under my control. It's like what you did with your dad, you know, you had him wrapped around your little finger. You used to go and say, Daddy, and you're like, oh good, Jada, what do you want? And you get what you want because you have Daddy wrapped around your little finger, right? That means you have him under your control, right? So I can say, Jada, you don't have to worry. This bird is not going to attack you. I have him wrapped around my little finger. I have him under control. So Shakespeare took that from falconry, put it in the English language, and today you use that without knowing where it came from. The other thing I can do, I can take it off from there. Okay, with some of the bigger ones, sometimes what you do. Okay, so he's there, and look what I'm going to do. It's very literal. I'm putting this here, and I'm doing this here. What did I just do? I put the jesses where?
In your palm.
Oh, the palm of
between your thumb and
under
index. Under your thumb.
Right. When you have somebody under your thumb, you have them under your control. Okay? He said, that guy couldn't do anything because, supervisor has him under his thumb. So that's another word. And the last one I'm going to leave with you is one that everybody uses all the time, especially mothers and people and stuff like that there. When you have siblings?
Yes.
Okay, and you younger?
Yes.
Right, and you tell them to do things, right? Because you're the older sibling, right? And if you tell them to do it 3 times and 4 times, by the 5th time you say, I am what? I tell you to do this all the time.
Fed up.
I'm fed up. That is it, I'm fed up. That's from falconry. Simple reason being, birds, when you feed them, the food from their stomach, it grows at the middles until they are fed up. It goes right up to there. Literally, they say full up to your throat, they are fed up. So I go out with my bird, and if somebody has got a bird and they're hunting, and my bird is not hunting. He said, what happened? Your bird not hunting? He said, boy, I didn't realize we was going hunting today, and I fed him last night. So he is fed up, right? So 3 terms, and now there's 7 more. So you guys out there, you guys can do your research and see how clever Shakespeare is. And I'm one of those who believe that Shakespeare is not one person at all. I am, there's like don't face that towards me. This is when I worry. When he points his tail towards me, they projectile poop up to 6 feet away. Well, Larry, point that cannon somewhere else, please. Right? Yeah, that's why I always try to keep it. All right, Larry, come.
And he's pooping today. He's pooping today.
Well,
so.
he did it already, so most likely not. But just to make fun of me, he might just, give us a blast to show them, hey, I'm on TV. Put him on blast.
Yes, because when we had the close-up of him, you could see him like he was watching almost to see if it was really him.
Right? Yeah, very much aware. Stuff where the eyes are great.
Yeah.
So, there's a whole world. I get excited because every time I'm preparing to come on for a show or speak to people, I want to learn something else to present to people because I'm trying to make it relatable. And so if it's a particular group and young people, and I probably discovered a young person did this, something like that, I'm always learning stuff, and it's just so exciting when you think things were simple, or one way, it's something else. So like when I found out about that Shakespeare thing, my mind was blown.
Yes.
My mind was absolutely blown. And so that's where we are today. And again, the linkages from falconry. And remember, falconry started more than 4,000 years ago. 4,000 years ago, some crazy humans said, let's get a bird to catch food for us. It doesn't even really make sense today, but even back then, it was crazy. And it's still being done as an art. It's been celebrated by the United Nations as an art and a cultural heritage because it's been around so long and it's actually so important for so many cultures all around the world. So while some of us look at it as sport and fun, for some people, it's how they eat meat. Because catching rabbits is not an easy thing.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, if it's one thing I did not know today, that falconry is a thing. Did not know that falconry is a thing, so that is something, I guess viewers at home, you all can also look that up and find a lot more information on these falcons and the different species of falcons.
Yeah, it seems so cool, like just to be able to say, yes, I do falconry.
Well, it's called the sport of kings because the kings are the ones who need to meet because they would be the ones who have the falcons and people to train them and so on, right? So you had porridge and the king would have rabbit and so on. Okay, and in some places they use the golden eagle, for example, to capture and kill wolves.
Wow.
So that's so you know these birds are powerful and capable hunters.
Yes, they're very useful and also very beautiful. Like, look at this, his head is all the way back. That is so cool.
Yeah, something has got his attention. Not me. Look at it. Jada.
Well, I don't think you'll be seeing any of us holding Larry today because of those sharp talons.
We have gloves. And no, I remember he had a penny, so it's actually...
Jada, would you like to hold him quickly before we go?
Proof that they're not sharp. Okay, want to give it a try? Definitely. Wonderful. That's the spirit. Let's see. You should be doing it with the glove, but let's see here. Come on. Larry's like, there we go. Just put your next hand, pop it up.
Which one? This one?
Yeah. Push it towards him.
Come down.
Towards him. Go ahead, Larry. There you go. There you go. And that's the way to wrap the show right there.
Okay. I just want to say his talons are not sharp at all. Oh, why is he digging? Why are you digging?
Because
why are you doing that?
Because he's a little off balance. So
okay, so he's...
Yeah, but it's not going to
good
rip
thing
you
it's not sharp,
or even damage your fabric.
Yeah, oh yeah, he's like... Her hands are soft.
Aww.
They're mushy. No, but Larry is adorable. So Larry will close off the show with me this morning. We have a quote to leave you with this morning. I think it's one that's on topic. In order to see birds, it is necessary to become a part of the silence. This is a quote by Robert Lind. So, Mr. Reed, what do you get from this quote?
Oh, that is so significant because did some birding this weekend and we had a couple incidents where people's noise affected the environment and it changed the environment. And people who go hiking and so on now, who carry those Bluetooth speakers and want to pong zest music in the bush as they walk along, they will never have an appreciation of the birds or the wildlife out there because they cannot become part of the silence.
Yes. Actually, I think I'm going to try and hold him on air because people like to think that I don't hold them at all, but I do.
Okay, so take your right hand, make a fist, and now you push it towards his legs. Go ahead, push on him. There you go. Very well trained, very respectable bird right there.
Larry, you're so cute. Good job, Jades. Yay!
So this is what we try to do with our ambassadors, because we want that bird to give you a positive experience where you will say, hey, it's not so bad.
It's not so bad.
And that is as many as 10 lectures. And just that one experience, you can lecture all you want, but that experience is what reaches the, oh my gosh, and you get that moment and that breakthrough with people. So this is what Larry's job is, and he's been doing a fine job at this. One of our very best ambassadors when it comes to this stuff here. Very well behaved.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Mead, once again for joining us on the program this morning. And to our viewers, thank you for staying, for tuning in and starting your morning with us. As always, stay safe for the rest of the day, stay inspired, and we'll see you back again tomorrow morning.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
WESN.
Bill and Ruth fell in love with the Benjamin Moore color Dry Sage, but they tried to match it using another brand's paint.
I mean, it's close enough.
Almost identical, really. Yeah, there it is.
Never trust another paint to be a Benjamin Moore color.
Struggling with heart health or frequent migraines? Discover the simple steps to reclaim your energy and vitality.
We're diving into a topic that affects about 422 million people around the world. Diabetes.
Tune into Wellness Unlocked, the series that delivers expert advice, practical tips, and inspiring stories to help you take control of your health and well-being. Your health matters. Don't miss Wellness Unlocked. Watch now on WESN and take the first step toward better health.
My name is Dr. Stephen Carroll, the CEO at Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist, and we are committed to making good private health care affordable.
For all your medical needs, including dental, radiology, laparoscopy, behavioral and mental health, along with many other services, contact us for more information at 235-5479.
Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
where good private health care is affordable.
Remember waking up early just to catch your favorite cartoons? WESN brings back those magical mornings with Retro Saturdays.
Thus, the Powerpuff Girls were born!
Where the young at heart relive the fun. Join us every Saturday from 8 a.m. to 12 noon, only on WESN, the content capital.
The home of Caribbean content is growing, and we welcome you to be a part of the #1 platform for young personalities who are driven to make a positive impact in society. As we continue to reach every corner of Trinidad and Tobago through our daily broadcasts, our social media pages, or through our 75+ digital billboards across the